We were talking after a morning service about the biscuits and the meaning of life and whether God really existed. So what is the meaning of life, someone asked. And another mentioned they'd read that it was man who had created God and not the other way round. We're a mixed bunch in this congregation. One of the more elderly ones gets a little sharp with us when we start these conversations and says that it's a sacrilege to suggest that God doesn't exist. The younger end, well, the middle-aged end really, they claim they are no longer card-carrying Christians, but seekers after the truth. They like to debate and argue with the Bible. They will also say that whether Jesus really existed or not, the message about loving your neighbour, being a good Samaritan, is the best one. He's a role model to follow. And one cynic asks why people worship Jesus, but not his teachings. At this point, one of the other members came wandering over. I've always admired the calm way he seems to live his life. He's one of the quiet leaders of the group. He doesn't drink our tea or coffee, but brings a flask of filtered water for himself, because he's a cancer survivor. And maybe it's that experience that has made him the person he is. But it's more than that, and he told me about it once. He said, even in his youth, he was interested in religion and what was the purpose of life. And he'd been to all the churches and he always found something in them. But not quite enough. He'd studied yoga and Hinduism, and they too had been almost spiritually fulfilling. And then came a time when he was in the doldrums, but his whole life was, and everything seemed to have lost its purpose. He took himself off to a quiet place, and he tried to meditate, and there was nothing. He said he became more and more aware of the emptiness of everything. He was meditating, and then he seemed to find himself within a total emptiness. It was the strangest feeling. And then he said there was a voice in the emptiness. It didn't belong to anyone. It didn't seem to come from any direction. Who are you? He asked. Is there a heaven and a hell? He asked. Yes, came the answer. Both exist for those who believe they do exist, otherwise not. So what happens when we die? Those who love their fellow beings are doing God's work, he heard. God is alive within them. In fact, God is part of them, and they do not die. They shed their body and return to God, and they become wholly part of God. So, said my friend, I've had the message from the source, and I believe it. I tried my best to live according to that wordless message out of the emptiness. I've not always been successful, but I do try. He stands at our table sipping his water, listening to the conversation. He knows, but he does not speak. Oh yes, I thought, he knows the meaning of life, but he's no ancient mariner stopping 1 in 3 and bursting to tell his story, and he's no evangelist with a truth he must perpetually proclaim. And I feel I understand why. Those who seek the meaning of life must go on their own journey, whether it is through religion or through life experience. They can be told about it by others, but they have to experience the journey for themselves. For some, there may not be an emptiness, there may not be a voice, or words without a voice. The spiritual awakening might come at any time and anywhere, in a crowd or in the solitude. And it may not come at all, and the journey never really end, except we trust we are doing what we should be doing. Talk about the meaning of life and looking for it could be the first step on that journey.